Welcome back to What the Fertility Season 4. Today we are chatting with Aubrey, who has spent the last 7 years trying to conceive. Aubrey has been through 2 failed IUIs and 2 unsuccessful FETs. She has been diagnosed with endometriosis and PCOS. Welcome, Aubrey. We're so thankful you're here, and I'm sure there's been so much more to your story since we originally connected. So yeah, if you just want to start from the beginning, when really, I guess, infertility and you and your partner started trying to conceive.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I'm excited. Odd to say I'm excited to share my story, but it's such a sad story, but like it's good to share. So I'm 32. I just turned 32 in November. My husband actually just turned 40 a couple days ago. So we have like a decent gap. But yeah, so we met in 2016 when I was, oh crap, now I have to remember ages.
Right.
I was
I was gonna say you and I are so similar. My husband just turned 40 and I'm 34. So you're 2 years younger. Gosh, you would have been like, I don't know either.
I think hard, guys. 22, something like that. I think I just turned 22. Anyway, okay, whatever.
I'm young 20s.
Sounds right. That
Early 20s. Early 20s. It's too early for math. And yeah, so we met in 2016. I told him pretty early on in our relationship, I was like, so I had a doctor tell me recently that I am going to probably struggle to get pregnant. And like at the time, he was just obviously kind and understanding. Well, I mean, he still is. But like at the time, even getting like news like that, he's like, okay, well, we'll like figure it out. And I was like, okay, we'll see, whatever. And my period started to like get progressively more painful. And it really started when I was probably, I want to say 20 or 21. They started to get really, really bad. And my mom was taking me to the ER. And I had friends who'd had PCOS. And I remember hearing about it a lot and having like cysts on their ovaries. And I remember this one period was really bad. And my mom took me to the ER. And I was just like, oh, it's PCOS. Like, I know what I have. And the doctor came in and confirmed that. And I was like, I knew that. Like, I think
that's impressive at 21.
I know. I was,
yeah.
Yes. Very good.
Like, I know
my body. And so, yeah, then we got together and yeah, they started to get worse. And then I randomly fell pregnant in November of 2016. So I didn't take a test. My body's very consistent. Like, even though I have PCOS and everything, I was always like within like 30, 32 days every single month. Like, it was very consistent. And I was just having weird symptoms. It was like my husband's breath was making me nauseous at the time. It sounds so bad. But like, I remember he ate a burrito. Well, actually, we were only engaged at the time, but he ate a burrito and he like came to kiss me. And I was like, no.
No, thank you.
And I was getting nauseous like every day at 3 at work. I would just have like ice chips. I was just like holding ice to my face to just like inhale something cold. And then about 2.5 weeks after that, basically I miscarried and I didn't really know what it was. I remember it was just like really heavy and very clotted. Oh my gosh, like TMI. I mean, I don't really have TMI. I share everything, but
yeah, on this podcast,
TMI on the show.
We've gone everywhere.
That's rough. And I was just like, I remember I called my boss and I'm like, I'm not coming in today. I don't feel good. And I just remember just like wandering our apartment and I'm like, what is going on? Like, this is much heavier than normal. And I'd had like an inkling of maybe I'm pregnant, but like we weren't trying. I wasn't really concerned. And so I wasn't going to test. Plus I had a boyfriend from a few years prior that made me like test consistently. And so it kind of became like this like trigger point for me where I'm like, I don't want to test. I hate testing.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a rough go. And so my mom, like before I miscarried, my mom was like, are you pregnant? You're just like really tired and moody and nauseous. And I'm like, I don't know, maybe. Like it was so like flippant. I'm like, maybe, I don't know. I miss those days. And and then a few months after that miscarriage, I went to see a foot zoning lady and she's like working on my heels. And I just vividly remember this. And she's like, she looks at me, she like stops and she goes, you have grief in your uterus. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what?
Wait, what type of healer was this, or what type of like
Foot zoning. It was just like foot zoning. And she just like, you have grief in your uterus. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean? And she's like, have you had a miscarriage recently? And I was like, yeah, I think I did a few months ago. And she's like, you need to heal from that. I was like, holy cow,
Wow.
okay. That was
I've had an experience like that with like a Reiki practitioner, and like they like dropped the number of losses, and I was like, what?
it's wild. I don't know how they know these things. I'm like,
Yeah,
oh, you
that's wild.
it was crazy. So then after that, oh my gosh, I have to like figure out my timelines now. It's been so long. It was like 9 years ago. So then after that, we never really like were preventing, but we were actually trying. And then we got married in September of 2017. And that's when I guess we really started to like track my cycle and like ovulation and stuff a little bit more. And then it was the beginning of 2018 that I went and saw a doctor because I was like, I think I have endometriosis. And I remember telling my mom and my husband that, and they were like, what is that? And I'm like, well, from what I can read with Google, it doesn't sound good. But I'm like, my periods are awful. Like they were so painful. I would go to doctors, and of course, doctors, they're just like, oh, you have painful periods. I'm like, well, I said that. I'm saying why. Like this cannot be normal. Like I am missing work. I am held up in bed, like in debilitating pain. I cannot move. This is not normal. And I remember one time I pulled my records from one of my doctors because I was just done with them. And I was looking over my medical records and I was looking over their notes, and it said complains of painful periods, amenorrhea. And I'm like, I was so mad. I'm like, this is not just freaking amenorrhea. Like, I know this is not just painful. Like it was
Way more than
sick. Yes. And so I went and saw a doctor. I was thinking, oh, it's a female doctor. She's going to be great. And understanding, not really. And she's like, so I went in there and I remember I was like, so we've been unprotected technically for like a year of trying, not trying, but unprotected sex. And I randomly like miscarried and everything. And I don't think I've been pregnant since. And I think I have endometriosis. And I remember she looked at me and she goes, well, do you have pelvic pain every day? And I said, no. But I mean, my periods suck. And she goes, well, then you don't have endo. I'm like, all right, cool. Thanks for letting me know.
I read somewhere years ago that it's the average endo diagnosis is 10 years.
Yeah. And it would have been within about 10 years. And at the time I still wasn't even diagnosed. She just was like, well, we're going to put you on Clomid. And I'm like, okay, what is that?
That's like the first line of defense. I'm dealing with this with a friend. Like she's literally your whole story going to an OB, and she's like, yeah, well, she said everything's fine. And then, I look at the labs and I'm like, not really.
I know.
But we're going to give you Clomid if you want, just because you're fine, but we're going to give you Clomid.
Right. It's like, well, we don't really know what to do and we don't want to try right now. So just throw this at you. And because it works for other people. And I knew of it because my mom always told me, oh, I got pregnant with your sister on Clomid back in the 80s. And I had like aunts do it and I had a cousin that did it and it worked for all them. I'm like, cool, let's give it a try. First round did nothing. It made me break out, which I was like, this is awful. It gave me hot flashes, which again was like, what the hell is this? And nothing like came of it. So then they're like, hey, we're going to do it again. I was like, okay. And the second time it was in the summer and I was at an amusement park with my sister here in Utah. And all of a sudden I'm sitting on a ride and it's like bumpy with my nephew. And I remember I'm like, oh, I'm hurting. What is wrong? And I started like this really tight pain. And I was talking to my sister, I'm like, we need to go. I need to go. I don't know what's wrong, but I need to go. And we drive home and her home was like 40 minutes north of this and we hit traffic and I'm like writhing in pain in her front seat. And I call my husband and I'm like, there's something wrong. I don't know what's going on, but Chelsea's taking me to the ER. And we get in there and I Googled it because the student, like, what else are you supposed to do? You're sitting in a car and you're in pain. You're like, hey, what's wrong? Google, help me. Like, am I dying? And it was OHSS. And I remember
From
looking.
Clomid?
Yeah.
What?
I've never. Mm-hmm.
Well, and because you have PCOS, so you probably just have like organically more like follicles and
Yes.
eggs each month.
Yes,
Okay, wow.
exactly.
I never thought about PCOS and Clomid together.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm
No,
gonna let you tell your story, but this is new. I've never heard of this.
Yeah, and actually, like looking into it later, they say it's actually a big no for women with PCOS to go on Clomid because of issues like this. OHSS is very
Oh my
common.
gosh, Aubrey, this is literally my friend that I was just saying. Like I have diagnosed her with PCOS. She doesn't know it yet because I'm not her doctor, but they're gonna offer. Wow. Okay, so you
Yeah.
go in, they say OHSS for listeners that don't know, that's just is it over hyper stimulate?
Ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome.
So you basically you tell us.
Yeah, so I looked at the ultrasound and they're like, all right, you see that little dot there? Or no, it was huge. Do you see that huge circle there? I'm like, yeah, is that my stomach? They're like, no, those are ovaries. I'm like, oh shit, okay. They're supposed to be the size of almonds and they were the size of avocados, is what they told me. And I was like, oh
The
my gosh.
pain.
I wonder
The
why.
pain.
Pain. Oh my goodness.
Painful. I was so like bloated and then I got sick and then they were trying to like give me things and it was such a mess. My husband came in after the fact and we're talking to the nurse and she was so sweet. She goes, you know, it took me 7 years to have my kids and now I have 6. And she's like, just let your body do what it needs to do or something like that. And I was like, thank you. Thank you. I got to take that right now.
Right, right.
So I call my doctor and they're like, okay, we're going to do an HSG. And I'm like, what is that? So I went into this horrible procedure. And I still like the details are so fuzzy, but they were like, we're going to give you Valium. I said, okay, you're going to go into this doctor's office. I still can't even remember. I was talking to my sister. I'm like, I don't remember my husband came with me. I feel like he did, but they wouldn't let him come back. So I go in, I change into the gown and I lay on this cold, hard metal bed. And the nurses were the sweetest thing. Bless nurses' hearts. They're amazing. And I remember she held my hand and they did the whole thing. And it was arguably one of the worst pains of my life. Like, I'm one of those people that it was the most painful experience. I was like writhing. They're like, you need to relax. I'm sobbing. I'm swearing. It was miserable. It was absolutely miserable. And after it's like, hey, you're done. You might have some spotting. I remember I like walked out into the waiting room where my husband was, and I was just sobbing. And like, I'm sure people are looking like, oh, what happened to her? And we're in the car and it like triggered these horrible cramps. And I was just like writhing and just, it was so painful. And then I started to like get nauseous because of the pain. And then it was so funny. It literally just like, we got home and it just went away. Like it was just like gone. I was like, oh, okay. That was
So this is
awful.
so interesting. Out of our hundreds of guests we've had on the show, those with endo and the HSG have been like a horrific experience. For me, I took Tylenol and I literally felt like I had like an eye exam. Like I had like no pain or anything. Did you, Amanda, was yours fine too?
I've had 2, and I think the first one was so fine. The second one I think was more painful, but I'd be curious now because I feel like now my endo is like getting worse. So I'd be curious if it would be changed because like it progressively got like more painful. But it was not, I mean, it was nowhere near what you experienced at all.
Yeah, because that's generally like the first thing you do, to your point. Like the first like fertility exam is HSG. They're basically just shooting the fluid to see if your tubes are open, the shape of your uterus, and it should generally, I think they tell you it shouldn't be that painful. So you were probably
I had no
everybody,
value or anything. Like I was just in
yeah.
my OB's office. She did it at their office, and I was just like a very casual experience.
Aubrey's like, thanks guys, you're not
I'm like,
making
this is great. Mine was awful. Thank you.
So sorry for you.
you're not making me feel any
It
better.
was traumatic. It's fine. It's fine.
That's awful. I'm so sorry. Okay, so at this point, hold on. So at this point, did you know you had endometriosis or still no
No, I
diagnosis?
still like, I remember in my gut, I was like, there is something more. And I remember I followed, I think it was like her name's Sarah Hyland. She was on Modern Family and she always talked about endometriosis. And I remember she posted something about it on her Instagram. And I was like, I think I have that. Just like very casually. I'm like, I bet that's what I have. Not really knowing what it was. So after this point, I think, did they put me on another round of Clomid?
Oh my gosh, after you OHS.
I don't try to remember. No, then, oh gosh, then we tried Humira or Letrozole because they were like, I think this will be better. So I said, okay. So then I went to the ER in June, May, June, something like that. And then in July, one lovely July 4 a.m. moment, I woke up with appendicitis.
Oh my gosh.
And I actually have learned later that appendectomies and endo are very closely related, something to do with the inflammation. So it's pretty interesting. Like a lot of women with endo have had appendectomies. So I go in, they do the surgery, and I remember coming out of anesthesia, I can hear the doctor telling my husband, we found purple polyps behind her uterus. She's endometriosis. And I was like, finally.
Yeah, like I told you.
I know,
That's
finally
fascinating,
validated.
guys. Yeah, you didn't have to have the laparoscopy. I mean, maybe you do later, but you're like, wow. Yeah, you're like, yeah, I did.
Actually, spoilers, I did. And so I remember going in for my post-op, and she's like, yeah, so we found these like 2 purple polyps, and she showed me the imaging, and she's like, and this is like indicative of endometriosis. And I was like, thank you. I know, but also thank you. Like,
Yeah.
I have an answer. I know this now. Kind of like a path, like I can move forward with this. And so I stopped going to that doctor because she was very dismissal of me. Or like that OB or whatever. And I started going to this fertility center called the Reproductive Care Center in Utah. And I remember I went in with my husband, and we kind of told the doctor, like, we did the HSG, we'd been a few rounds of Clomid, and we did a round of letrozole. And I have PCOS and endometriosis. And he goes, so you're underweight. Like, it was so just, ooh. And I was like, yeah, I'm tall. I always have been. Like, this has always been me. And he's like, oh, you just need to gain weight. And I was like, I don't think I do. I think there's more to it. And I remember my husband was so mad. And he was like, I think if you just ate more burgers and shakes and like had just whatever you want every single day, you'll gain weight, you'll get pregnant. And I'm like,
Wait, what?
dude, yeah, I was so mad. Like, I hate you.
That's so dismissive.
I was so dismissive. And it was also just like, I don't know, had like this like misogynistic undertone of like, you're underweight, just eat food. I'm like, oh, shut up.
Right, right.
But I liked his nurse. She was really sweet. And so this was actually beginning of 2020, before COVID like became like a really big issue, I would say, when I went and saw him. And they had me come in and do it was like timed intercourse with letrozole, I think. My gosh, I can't remember exactly. And I remember going in, and she was like, all right, we're just going to do like a follicle check kind of thing. And she goes, oh, you do have a lot of follicles. You've got like 40 over here and 60 over here. And I'm like,
Oh my God.
I can feel it. Yeah. I'm like, my ovulations are never, not painful. I always knew when I was ovulating, like me and my sisters would be like, oh, it's the right side. Like you could just like feel it. It was wild. And yeah, then we did, I don't even know how many rounds of letrozole. Gosh, like 6. And it was just, obviously nothing came of it. And then I was just frustrated. I'm like, I don't like this clinic. Like, I don't like this guy. I don't like this clinic. So at the end of 2020, I started having like crazy gastrointestinal issues. And I learned I was gluten intolerant, which is also like a symptom with endo. A lot of people with endo have like gluten and lactose intolerance. So I met with a, who was it? Timeline. I think after that, well, that was really rough because then I'm trying to like figure out what I can eat and not lose weight. But I've never like really been overly concerned about my weight because I've just always been tall and thin.
Yeah.
And so it was just like not really concerning. But when I had to go gluten free, there were not a ton of options back then. So it was so much trial and error, and I was losing weight, and it was frustrating. And then we sort of put like trying to conceive on the back end, you know, like, okay, we need to figure out like what I can eat and focus on my health. And then I started seeing a functional medicine doctor that my friend referred me to, and she helped me a lot. She helped me. She's like, oh, you have SIBO, you have candida overgrowth. Like, let's get you all figured out. Like, I had all the gut issues. And I was so sick. Like, I was bloated every night. I was so gassy. I was miserable. I'm like, this is hell. Like, this is miserable. This cannot be my life. And she helped me. The goal with her was to help heal the endo naturally. And I obviously had hope in that. I'm like, okay, this is going to work. This is going to work for me. And sadly, no. But she did help me with like all my gut stuff. Like, helped me with like I wasn't bloated or gassy. I could eat. not anything, but I could eat again and not feel miserable. And she explained to me like inflammatory foods to avoid or like cut down on and everything. And then I stopped with her because we kind of hit like a dead end. Or like, okay, well, at this point, you should probably go see like a endo specialist. Okay. So then in 2022, I think, yeah, I have a friend who's gone through quite a few years of infertility, and she went and saw this awesome endo specialist. I don't think she's like a nook surgeon or whatever it is, but she was awesome, and she helped her with her laparoscopic surgery. And so I met with her, and I explained to her, I'm like, I've already been diagnosed with it through surgery, but I'm like, I think it's still there. Or, well, that's stupid. I know it's there, so I need it out.
Yeah.
And she was like, okay, yeah, let's do that. And so we did the surgery. It went really well. I think they were able to get like 95% of it. And the last 5 was like connected to the bowel. And she explained to me and my husband why she couldn't get to that. And it was like fine and understandable. And healing was pretty fine. It was just, because it was laparoscopic, like the appendectomy, it was just like all the gas pain in my shoulders. It was miserable. And it's a whole other weird thing.
And
And then
did they say what stage? When you said
yeah, it's a 4. It
I
was
was
like,
gonna say when it's connected to your bowel, right? That's
yeah,
stage 4.
it was
Like when
pretty
it comes
bad.
to other organs, yeah.
Yeah, it was a 4. It was, I think, I don't know if it was more of like the webbing. It was more of like polyps and things. It was weird. But she's like, yeah, we were able to cut out things and do it like minimally without any major scarring and scar tissue and stuff. And so after that, to help with things, I went and saw a pelvic floor therapist, and she was amazing, and she helped me so, so much. And then I was like, okay, we're in a good place. And I went back to my post-op, and she's like, you've got about a good 6-month window to get pregnant. I was like, okay, let's try this. And like sidestep, as everyone knows that's gone through infertility, it changes sex drastically. It is not as fun as it used to be, as far as like, let's go have sex and like spontaneously. It's like always in the back of your mind. You're like, what if I get pregnant? This could be the time. What if this is it? And it's just,
or like, I'm ovulating, but I'm not even in the mood. I don't care. We're doing this now.
Oh, that's worse. But yeah, seriously, it's like, I don't want to do it. Let's do it.
Okay.
There was a time, this sounds horrible, when I was on letrozole, and they were like, okay, oh no, that was for my IUIs, when they were like, okay, so you're going to have sex this time. And then I can't remember exactly. It was like every other day for 3 days leading up to it. And then the night before, something like that. And I remember I told my husband, I'm like, I have no desire. And it was like 6 a.m. I'm like, just do it. Like, I'm just,
I'll just lay here.
I don't need to like no foreplay. I'm like, let's just do it. I'm so tired. I'm so done. Like,
I know. It just becomes like a task. And it's like a task that like you can't put off. Like,
right.
You gotta do it.
Right. And it's so like sad, because it is such a beautiful, like intimate thing, and it becomes so mechanical, and you're like, this is miserable. Like, this is not as fun as it should be or used to be, So then we tried obviously for those 6 months, and nothing came of it. And then finally I think we like prayed or something, and I'm like, okay, let's do a freaking IUI. And at the time, I had already, like, I think a few months prior, I'd sworn off ever doing IVF, because I knew of some people that did it, and I heard the side effects, and I ignorantly thought it was like a 50-50 shot of actually getting pregnant. And I was like, oh, I can't believe people waste their money. Like, I was so ignorant on it. And so then we did an IUI. We went to a new clinic, because I'm like, I'm not going to that clinic. I can't stand that doctor. And the new clinic was great. And I remember they were telling me, like, going over the calendar, going over medications, just like the medications, like the trigger shot and stuff. And I was like, okay, like, I can do this. Like, this is fine. So we did our first IUI. Oh my gosh, I think it was beginning of 2023. And I had a friend that did an IUI, and it worked for her. And so I was like, okay, I'm just going to do everything she tells me to do. I'm going to keep my feet warm after. I'm going to eat warm soup. Like, gosh, I'm so ignorant. And like assuming it was going to work for me too. And it did not. And I was sad, but I wasn't like, I don't know. I mean, I did put a lot of like stock into it, like, oh, this is going to work. So it was pretty like devastating, but I was like, okay, we'll just try another one. Cause they always say you do it again, your odds increase. So I did another one. I think like a month-ish, couple weeks after that. Or yeah, cause we had to wait for my cycle again. Then I did it again. And like it went smoothly, everything was fine. We did went and ate fries. I didn't do McDonald's fries because they're not gluten-free and I don't like them. So we went to In-N-Out. And I remember it was just like, I don't know, at that point I still, it sounds sad. I was still like very like doe-eyed and hopeful, like, oh, this is gonna work, like this is all it's gonna take. And then it failed. And so then we were like, okay, I don't want to do a third. I'm like, once I realized what an IUI actually was, I'm like, afterwards I was like, that's it. Like you take my husband's best sperm and I lay down, like that's it. I could do that at home. Like
that's what I was gonna say. So like for people that don't know, and correct me if I'm wrong, but an IUI is pretty much the same success rate in a non-infertile couple every month. So it's like 20-ish% chance that it works. Because yeah, I mean I have friends that are like, I did IUI and it's mind blowing it didn't work. And I'm like, it's mind blowing that it would work.
Yeah.
it really is. It's a miracle that it works.
Yeah, I'm like, trust me, and to your point with your story, you're like, my friend, it worked the first try, and that's similar to my girlfriend that's doing in the midst of IUIs right now. And I'm like, you just happen to know the one person that had the lucky star and it worked the first time.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, you're right. It's literally like the exact same chances of just a regular couple. So I'm like, but also insurance, even though they didn't cover Jack, they were like, if we cover anything, you have to do at least two. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So then we're left with like, okay, what do we do? I'm like, doctor's like, well, let's go to IVF. I think you'll get really good results. And I'm like, okay. But financially, we were like, there's no freaking way. Like, there's no way. That is so, it was like $20,000 right off the bat for just, like the retrieval. And I was like, there's no way this is going to work. Or like that we can make this work. And, stars align and whatever. And we were able to like, I think we did a loan or something. And I remember talking to my doctor and then going over another calendar and more medications and everything that's like going to lead up to that. And we were planning a trip out to South Carolina because I have family out there. I'm like, let's just go on vacation before we jump into this. Like, I need a break for a minute. So we went out there and it was amazing. And I'd been out there before, but my husband hadn't. So it was fun for him. And
Where'd you go? That's where I live.
Oh, fun. Yeah. So I have family in Columbia and Blythewood. And then we went over to Charleston.
Yeah, that's where I'm in Charleston, but I went to college in Columbia.
Oh, nice. No, I love South Carolina. I'm like, I could live here. Minus the floods. My uncle's like, oh yeah, this street of Columbia flooded so bad last year and people died. I'm like, I don't want to
live in Utah, so let's just switch.
I know.
Yeah.
Love it out there. It's so beautiful and it's so great.
But trips before IVF are always the way to go. I think
Right.
and I did that too.
It was just nice. We just needed that break, right? And then we came back and we started everything and I consider myself a pretty strong person. Like I can go through endo period pain that like radiates down my thighs and makes me ball up in the floor, like on the floor. And these shots were so painful. I could not do it myself. Like my husband would give me all the shots every morning. Like he has to wake up early for work. I'm like, I don't care. I will wake up at 4 a.m. with you. I am not doing these shots. Like I remember one time I just looked down at my stomach and I was like, okay, 1, 2, 3, go. 1, 2, 3, go. And it was just not happening. It was like the tiniest needles. And I'm like, I can't do it. It's weird. And the manicure burned. I remember like swearing and screaming. Like it felt like a bee sting. I was so unprepared for that burn. And because even like the IUI shots, they were just pinchy, but they didn't like burn. So we started doing all the shots and monitoring things. And this was August of 24, I think. And I remember I was just starting to get really, really bloated. And I remember going to my mom's with my husband one day and she goes, oh, you look pregnant. I'm like, oh, thanks, Mom.
Like it's just the first thing you can say right now.
Lots of eggs. Yeah. And so then we went in for like the follicle checks and I remember looking and they were counting and it was taking forever. And I'm like, this better be a good thing. And the tech was like, oh, I see like 40 plus follicles. Like, this is going to be great. And I said, okay. So then we came back. Oh, because then she was looking at my lining and there was some fluid in there. Nope, that's a different story. Oh my gosh, sorry guys. That was before the actual transfer. I'm like, well, that wouldn't make sense. Why would they check my lining? Good Lord. So then we gear up for the retrieval. And at this point, I was so bloated and uncomfortable. And I'm like, just praying, like, this works, you know, like, you really don't know what to expect. It's so just, you don't know what to expect. So I go in there and I don't remember how long it took. I don't remember any of that. But I come out and I remember hearing, like, coming out of anesthesia, I remember hearing my doctors, just everyone was talking and they were talking a lot, like, loudly and like, oh my gosh, like, this is amazing, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what happened? They're like, you got 48 eggs.
Oh my goodness.
Wild.
Freaking kidding me.
That's
That's
literally insane.
Yeah, my girlfriend with PCOS, well, she doesn't know she has PCOS. This is actually a different person. She got 40 eggs as well. And like, without knowing PCOS, I'm like, oh my God, well, that's a little like rare event.
Oh yeah, it was rare because I remember looking online. They're like, you're likely to get like 16 to 20 eggs. I'm like you
Yeah.
got 48. I'm like,
Yeah.
holy
And
hell.
I want to hear the outcome, but isn't
Yeah.
typically like with PCOS, you might get 40 some eggs, but some are not mature?
Yes, and then also with endo is well, also depending on where the endo is, it can deteriorate your eggs quicker. So you know, there's always that like kind of fear. So and then I remember they gave us the call and they're like, okay, so 36 were mature. I'm like, damn.
Wow.
That's great.
And then they call and they're like, okay, so 26 were fertilized. I'm like,
You're like,
so
oh,
every call, we're just like, this is unreal. Like, I've heard people's stories where they're like, we got 4 fertilized or something. And I'm like,
That's us.
hey,
Like we got one.
like, literally.
I know, I realize I'm very blessed with my eggs. And then I get the call of, we had 13 blasts. And they were all like, I don't think I have anything under a day 4. And then we're like, of course, they're like, okay, do you want to do the testing? And my doctor said we didn't really need to because our agents and another side story. Every sperm analysis my husband did, they're like, does he want to donate to help other couples? Because he has the best sperm. Like he was that man. Like they're like, it is so fast, it's so healthy, it's so clear, it's everything. I'm like,
Great.
of course, which I'm grateful because I'm thankfully it's not like a double factor, but I'm like, nope, thank you.
Yeah, shoulder some of this, please.
Right. And they're just like, oh, it's the best sperm we've ever seen. I'm like, oh, shut up.
Yeah.
I'm glad, but shut up. So that's another thing. And then they're like, well, it's up to you. And we talked about it. We prayed about it. Like my faith is a big part of my life. And I know there's a lot of moral issues with people believing like certain things with testing and stuff. And I understand it's not like 100% like accurate or whatever. And but we prayed about it and I'm like, I would so much rather personally transferring something knowing it has a better chance than transferring something untested and spending that money. Cause like, again, financially, I'm like, I don't have the money to just transfer willy-nilly. Like,
yeah. And then to
I
go through a loss that's going to happen, like potentially going to happen.
right. And it's not to say like, I know tested ones that failed. Well, obviously, but they failed and were tested and, and they said they were great. And like, and I get that, like it happens, but like for ourselves and sanity and own peace of mind, I'm like, I want to transfer something I feel like I know has a better chance. And then I also heard stories of everyone like, oh, I transferred and it failed. And then they're like, hey, well, now you need a test. So I kind of wanted to like try to take out as many other steps as I could. And so we tested, I think 10. We have 3 that aren't even tested. They're just, some frozen. And so we tested 10. And I remember looking at the results and they all said euploid or whatever. And I was like, what?
Wow. Wait, all of them were normal.
Yeah. And I called my doctor and I'm like, is this right? And she's like, I'm in shock too. I'm not like in shock, but just like, this is not normal. Like, this is not
Yeah.
common to have them all normal. I'm like, all right. So then more hope of like, okay, we can do this. This is going to work. And at the time I was talking to this friend of a friend who had just gone through her first IVF cycle also. And she had PCOS and endo also. And she got like 46 eggs. And so we were like very similar numbers. She had like 12 normal, 12 frozen. So, and then she did her first transfer and it worked. So I'm like, Kay, you tell me everything that you did. So she's like, Kay, I did acupuncture like 2 days a week. I did beet juice. I did like everything. And I wrote it all down and I did everything. And I'm sorry to those out there. I hated acupuncture. I was cold. I was bored. I'd like slightly move to itch my hand or like change music or a podcast. And there's like some in my hands. And so it like twinged. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is awful. Like 45 minutes. I'm like, this is not relaxing. And I know the literature or whatever, like studies say, well, if you do acupuncture, you're more likely to like have success. I'm like, I don't think so.
Yeah.
In my case, at least, this is not like stress relieving. It's not. But I did that and I drank all the beet juice and I was fine because I like beets. And so I'm like, this is great. And my husband like, this is disgusting. He like took a sip. And I did everything. I did everything she did. And this was like our first cycle was medicated. Or no, it was natural. They're like, well, your body's like pretty good at what it does, so we're just going to do it natural. And I went in there and we chose a boy and it was like the best. Well, no. Oh, so we had like 10 girls and 10 boys that we tested. And we're like, well, let's do the boy or whatever. So we did that. And I went in and the experience was awful. They went up and it normally should take like 3 minutes, took like 20 because they kept hitting this wall in my cervix. And I wasn't really, I wasn't sure what to expect. So it wasn't comfortable. I'm like, this is not comfortable or pleasant. And then you have to have the full bladder. And then they brought in someone who was training to, like do the ultrasound on your bladder to see the catheter. And I'm like, crying in pain because she's pushing hard. I have to pee. Like it was such a mess. So then they had to take the catheter out with the embryo still because I still couldn't like get up through whatever into my cervix. And they put it back in the freeze, not to like refreeze, but just back in like the cold room. And I was just in tears. I'm like, this is not going to work. Like this is so a mess. I was so mad. Then they came back and they brought in an actual like a tech that knew what she was doing and a little more gentler. And they're like, okay, so I guess you have like a blockage, like a wall is how they kept putting it in your cervix. We weren't aware of that. So now we know what to do. I was so mad. I'm like,
I wonder why your HSG hurt so bad.
Right. Maybe. I'm like, I look back, I'm like, I don't really know now. But so then they did that and it was good, like the second time around, but I was still just like, I don't know. And then, the 2-week wait, I didn't really know what to expect. I was very emotional and it was just a mess. And waited the whole day for that call. And then, of course, they're like, unfortunately, it didn't work. And I was just like, oh, okay. So then we're like, all right, let's do a second one. So then we were gearing up for that. And they're like, okay, this time we're going to do it's going to be medicated. And I said, okay. And I'm trying to remember. Oh, they like send over all the medication and I'm looking through it and I'm just getting like overwhelmed. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to take forever. Like, it was like, I came to like these little moments of like, this is really going to be hard. Like, this is not, it wasn't easy to begin with leading up to it, but it was just like very difficult. Just everything involved was just getting to be a lot. It was very overwhelming. So I didn't do acupuncture the second time around because I was just like, I don't feel like it really did anything for me. And I didn't really do the beet juice. The second time around, I was like, I am just going to do whatever I want. Like, yes, I'll eat healthy and I'll not like drink my caffeine or whatever, but I'm like, I'm not going to do all these extra things. I did add Neupogen, I think it, yeah, because I read like, oh, this can be good because I wanted to do embryo glue, but it was like, it's really expensive. I'm like, okay, well, let's try this.
Yeah, I was wondering, I thought Neupogen was expensive too, but is it, I mean, everything's expensive.
I know.
Relative.
Right. And everything's out of pocket. Insurance literally is like, we'll cover your blood work. I'm like, well, thanks.
I know, right?
That's whew, $200. Thanks. And yeah, so yeah, I think the Neupogen was like 300 and the embryo glue was like 6, or it was like double that or something. And I was like, okay, we'll give it a try. And so we did that. I'm sure I'm missing so many details. It's gosh, so much. But so we did that. And then the second time we did the transfer, everything was so smooth. We didn't want to know the gender or the embryo this time. We're like, just put in the next best one. And it was so smooth and seamless and wonderful. And yeah, and then I did the 2-week wait again and got in my head like the last couple days, and then I started having freak out moments. And the thing also is like, I'm not an anxious person. I never really have been, but this whole process has brought up a whole lot of anxiety that I didn't realize I had.
Oh.
And so that was a rough go. So then I remember like after the second transfer, I told my doctor, I'm like, can I get Xanax?
Yeah.
Like, well, have you tried deep breathing? I'm like, yes, I've done everything. I've done yoga. Like roll my eyes at that because I'm sorry, it does not do anything for me. And she's like, okay, I'll give you some like a low dose Xanax. I'm like, I need to be calm. Like there's some days where I know I'm just going to have like little freak out moments. And then I got the call again and they were like, well, so it's negative. Like it's kind of chemical. It was like right on the border of like a chemical pregnancy. And I was like, oh, okay. That was really hard. Cause that was like, I mean, it is, it's like, it stuck, but it couldn't really like hang on. So that was really hard for me. And then, around this time, oh gosh, we were trying to sell our house because we knew if we needed to want to do any other transfers or possibly adoption one day, like we need money. We have to sell our house. So in the process of doing a second transfer, FET, we're trying to sell our house. So my stress is so high. I'm like, I'm sure that was the best thing I could have done for myself. Sell a house and do a transfer. Yeah, don't ever do that. And so then we were like, you know what, let's kind of just take a break. Let's just focus on selling our house and let's plan a trip. And it was probably a couple weeks after we found out it failed. I was talking to my husband. I'm like, let's go to Europe. And he's like, okay, where do you want to go? I'm like, let's go to France.
I love that.
So we went to Paris in just this past August. It was amazing. It was so much fun. And it was such a good break. But it's so funny because I go out there and everyone's like, oh, just take a break. Don't even think about selling your house or IVF. Just don't even think about it. And I'm like, you've never gone through infertility, have you? Like, that is not how
every second of every day. Yeah.
Right. I'm like, even if I don't want to be thinking about it, it's somewhere back here just looming. Right. But it was a blast and it was a good like distraction and stuff. And we came home and like sold our house immediately and everything happened pretty quick. And we're like, great, we can do another transfer. So with our third one, I had been researching like add-ons and I follow like a bunch of different like IVF accounts. And I heard of some people with endo and I had some friends that did it. They did like the intralipids, like the infusions. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to give that a try. And, before all of this, like before I even did IVF, I wanted to be tested for MTHFR because I know women with endo, it's common for them to have that. So I remember I like really pushed for that and it came back negative. So that was nice. And I was like, okay, that's good to know. So I'd already kind of like advocated for myself for a few things. I'm like, I really want to push for this, you know? And so this third one, I did the same thing. I'm like, I want to do that. And they're like, all right. And I'm trying to think if there are any other modifications. No, it was still just like the PIO and then the suppositories and estrus and everything. And it makes you just so happy and joyful and not emotional and irritated at all. Such a mess. And so we did that, and or like we did the lipids and everything. And then the third transfer was back in end of, yeah, okay. Yeah. When was it? It was like I think it was a day before Thanksgiving, just this past November. And it went really smoothly again, and everything went well. And like the day before that, I started to feel kind of off, like sick. I was like, oh crap, okay, what can I do to like kick this quickly? And I did all my regular, like trying to kill a sickness quickly, like remedies or whatever, like natural things. And then we did the transfer, and I went home and I slept for hours, and I woke up and I'm like, I am so sick. This is not good. And I was congested and my throat was killing me. I probably had, within the span of like 2 days, I probably had like 30 cough drops. Like my throat was just, it was so sore. And I was trying to be so natural, because they're like, well, now you're, pregnant until proven otherwise. So treat it like an early pregnancy. And I was like, okay, well, I really want to take a bath. And my friend got me like all these bath bombs, and I'm like Googling things. I'm like, okay, early pregnancy, can I use a bath bomb? And they're like, aromatherapy has not been tested on the neonatal outcomes of a first trimester. And I'm like, okay. So I get out of the bath, and my husband's like, how was it? I'm like, it was awful. It was cold, and it didn't smell great because I didn't have a bath bomb. Like, it was just, oh, I was so miserable. And I was so scared because I'm like, I'm pretty sure I had COVID because food started to taste like metal. And I was like, this is not good. So Thanksgiving, the next day, I'm eating and just trying to relax, because they're like, just try to stay calm. Don't do anything stressful or raise your heart rate, And I was just trying to do everything I was supposed to. And again, I really didn't add on any like extra things at that point. But like after my third transfer, I'm like, I'm going to be careful. But if I want to eat a cookie, I'm going to eat a cookie. And if I want to like have a sip of like a Coke or something, I'm going to, like, it's fine. And I don't know, I just get to this mindset where I'm like, I don't think one thing's going to make or break it. And that's what my nurse kept telling me too, which was comforting, because I was very like, I can't do this. I can't do this. I don't want to do this, because you don't want to, possibly be the reason it doesn't work. So then I was probably sick for a good week after that. And I started, was it like the following week? Yeah. So my clinic did the beta, I think 10 days after the transfer, I don't remember for sure. And I remember I started to get anxious again. And then I woke up to do the shot, because we woke up at like 4 a.m. to do the shots. And I started to bleed. And I just, in my head, I'm like, I'm out. Like, I know this didn't work. So I started to kind of have a panic, and I go out there. My husband's getting ready for the shot. And I'm like, no, it didn't work. I'm bleeding. Like, that was my mindset. I was just like, it didn't work. Because I didn't know. I just assumed if you're bleeding that much, you miscarried or whatever. And, or it failed. And so my husband's like, okay, are you sure you don't want to do the shot? And it was 4 a.m. So I was so tired, and I'm like, no, I'm just going to go to bed. I'll text like my nurse in the morning, or I'll email her. And so I woke up went back to sleep. He went to work. I woke up, and I was just kind of like, I started to get like really emotional and just frustrated. And I texted my doctor, and I was like, I'm bleeding. It didn't work. And she's like, are you sure? And then I was like, oh, I'll take a test. And I was so like mad at myself for even thinking that, because I just hate them. And I took a test probably for the first time in at the time, 5 years, and it was negative. And so then that added to the emotion, and I'm like, I'm so done. And so I text her, I'm like, nope, I took a test. It's negative. I'm out. And she's like, okay, well, still your beta's tomorrow. Come in. We want to check your hormones. I said, fine. So I went in the next day, and I'd already like told my family, I'm like, okay, we're out. This like transfer didn't work either. And I go in the next day, do the blood work, come home. Well, so while I'm getting my blood drawn, I talked to like the MA and I was like, how long does it take for the labs to actually show up in the portal? And she's like, oh, in like 45 minutes. I was like, oh, good, because I'm tired of getting the phone call. Like if I can find out before for myself and not be anxious all day, because that was the worst, then that's great. So I came home and I work from home. I'm a social media manager. So I was like working and then I was just like, I'm going to check my portal. So I was looking and all of a sudden I see a number and it was like 7. And I was like, well, that's not 0. Okay. Let's,
Yeah.
Okay, what?
oh yeah. I was so like, what? I immediately in Googling, I'm like, okay, an HCG, is that a 7? What does that mean? Like, is it chemical? And they're like, it's technical or something. And I was like, okay. So I wasn't like putting a lot of like stock into that. I'm like, okay, it's probably chemical. And then my doctor calls me or my nurse or whoever, and she's like, so it's positive. It's, I mean, I don't think she said it just like that, but something like that. It was like, your number's low, but it is positive. So we want you to come in a couple days and we're going to check it again. And I said, okay. So I call my husband and I'm like, okay, good news, but tentatively good news. Like, don't get too excited.
Probably is going to change in 2 days.
Right. I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen. And that's what's been like one of the hardest things is, and I'm sure you guys feel this too. It's like, you want to give your husband a child so bad because you know, like they'd be an amazing father. And I hated having to tell him every time it failed or every time like I got bad news. It was just gutting. Like I feel like I can handle it and put it on me. That's fine. But, like I hate it. Probably the hardest thing for me is just knowing that like you could have been a father by now if you were someone else, probably. I don't know. Anyway, so
Yeah, I mean,
I go back. Yeah. So then we go back, or I go back in 2 days later, and it was at 19. And I was like, oh, they're like, that's really good. It more than doubled. I'm like, cool. Then it came back again, and it was at like 53. And I was like, oh, damn. And then I went back again, and it was at like, I don't remember the exact numbers, but it was like after 53, it was like around, oh, it was like 102. And then they kept calling me every day and they're like, okay, so what we want you to do is double your progesterone. They had me do that after the first HCG. They're like, we want you to do more. And I think that was it. They might have had me do something else. I don't remember for sure. But yeah, basically more progesterone and then kept going in for the blood work. And at this point, I'd done the intralipids once and that was fine. It was like sitting there for an hour, but I had like a TV and stuff, so it was fine. But yeah, and then we went in, or, I went in, a couple days, like a week-ish before Christmas. And it was at like, oh my gosh, I think it was over, it was near like 800. So we're like, okay, so I think we're out of the woods, but we want you to come in and do like the placement ultrasound to make sure it's where it needs to be. At this point, I started to kind of like let myself feel a little excited. And I know it's very common, like in the infertility community, to obviously like protect your heart because you don't want to just like put all your hope out there and be like, it's going to work every time, blah, blah, blah. Because then like the heartbreak is just really, really rough. And so I was slowly starting to let myself get excited. But also knowing the truth of like the other shoe could drop because I am a realist. My husband sometimes hates it. I'm like, I'm not a pessimist. I'm a realist. Not an optimist sometimes, but I'm like,
Me too.
I'm not going to give myself false hope, right? It's just,
And especially after so many bad news, this like going through this, I'm sure only made you more of a realist.
Oh, for sure. Borderline pessimist for sure. Like, it's not going to work. No. And, yeah, I went in there and I was so nervous. I remember I would look down at my hands and they were just like shaking. And I was like, okay, I've got to like calm down. I've got to calm down. She comes in and she's doing it. And as soon as she goes in there, I can already see, I'm like, I don't see it. Like, and then I know I'm ready. Like what I need to see. And she's like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. It's not there. I'm like, I know. And I was just kind of like processing and just like, oh shit. Okay. I'm so mad. And what's even more frustrating is like immediately she's like, okay, so we can do the DNC or give you the methotrexate. And I was just
I feel like they say that before your ultrasound's even done. Like
yes,
I feel like okay, what do you want to do? And you're just like, can I like process this first?
yes, I was so mad. I'm like, I'm sorry, what? I just
Yeah.
found out it's not even there. Like,
After weeks and weeks, not to mention the years of trying. Yeah, I know.
yes,
So
yeah,
sorry. That's
yeah,
so tough. Yeah, I know. I've been in those shoes so many times. I know Amanda has too. And like, I feel like the finding out at the ultrasound is just like so gut wrenching because you're just like, to your point, like you know what you're supposed to see. So the
right.
second that it pops up, you either know, nobody has to tell you, you know.
Yeah. So that was a really rough day. But yeah, then like walking out of there, and at the time I was just like, I don't know. I need to think about this. Like, but I knew I didn't want to do the methotrexate because my sister had a miscarriage at like 13 weeks or something, and she took that and it nearly killed her, and like she hemorrhaged and she had to do a DNC anyway. And then I heard stories of women that are like, I wish I would have just done the DNC because that
Mhm.
made me bleed for months. And so I
Mhm.
was just in my mind, I'm like, I'm not doing that to myself. And I hated it. I walked out of there still like processing, but I could tell I was about to break. And they hand me forms of an ectopic pregnancy and what to do. And in my mind, I'm like, it's not ectopic. Like,
I was about to ask, yeah, where did they jump from that?
I don't, they just because I couldn't see it, they just assumed I was like, it's not ectopic. Like, I know, I mean, I've never had one, but I've heard it's pretty freaking painful and you know it quickly. Plus, my numbers were so high and they kept going up. And so then I remember I got in my car and just broke down immediately. And I called my husband just sobbing. And I let my family know and everything. And that's also so hard because, you know, like they want it just as much as you do for you. Like they're excited too. And it's just more bad news to deliver. Like it's just so rough.
It is.
And I think I was just kind of like, okay, let's just get through the holidays and like just get through Christmas, whatever, and figure out what to do next. And we were like having our family Christmas party at our house a couple days later. And my sisters were like, are you sure? I'm like, yes, I need the distraction. I need to laugh. I need something. Like, this is not my Christmas season. This is so depressing. This is not going to be it. And that, so the night of hearing like that there wasn't a sac there, my doctor called me and she was so sweet. And she's like, do you have a good support system? Do you need anything? Are you okay? I'm like, I'm okay, but yes, I have a good support system. And I love my doctor. She's so sweet. And she's like, do you want to do the DNC then? I was like, yeah. She's like, okay, we'll schedule you 2 days after Christmas, the 27th. I said, okay. So go through the next few days and they're like, you might start bleeding. You can stop all your medication and everything. And I said, okay, fine. And on Christmas morning, I started to kind of have cramping and I was like, oh, that's great. And literally woke up and went pee and I was bleeding. And I'm like, Merry Christmas.
Oh no.
And so I come out and tell my husband, I'm like, okay, it started. And he's like, okay, what, like, do you want to stay home? I'm like, no, I don't want to stay home. Like, that's the most depressing Christmas. So I just used my like rice sock that like you can heat up or whatever for the cramping. We went to my mom's and I let them know and whatever. We went up to my sister's that night because her birthday's on Christmas and we were celebrating and it started to get really intense to the point where I could track them like contractions. And it was really, really painful. And I was telling my husband, I'm like, I think I need to go to ER. Like I'm hurting and I'm bleeding a lot. So he like picks me up and throws me in the truck.
Oh.
So dramatic, but literally I could not move. And we go to the ER and thankfully it was not busy. And I walk in there and they're like, okay, jump on the scale. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, what's going on? I'm like, I'm having a miscarriage. Like, oh my gosh. Obviously not laughing because it's funny. Just the situation is just like, this is so ridiculous. And we go in there, and I really did not like the doctor they had at the time on call. He was very just like disregarding of everything I said. And I had to repeat myself so many times. They're like, okay, is this your first pregnancy? No. Is this your first miscarriage? No. And I had like go over it over and over while they're doing like IVs, while I'm like in pain. And I let him know. I'm like, well, no, I know it's a miscarriage, and they didn't see anything on the ultrasound. And so they're like, hey, we're going to bring in our tech just to make sure everything's okay. I said, okay. So they bring her in. She was the sweetest thing. And she was letting me know, she's like, with my last pregnancy, I bled a lot in the first trimester, and I was sure it was lost, and I have my baby now. And so she's like, bleeding is very common as long as it doesn't soak a pad and it doesn't last and it's not clotted. And so that was actually quite comforting. I'm like, okay, that's good to know. Because literally as soon as I was bleeding, I'm like, I'm out. I know it didn't work. Like, that was just my mindset. And she starts doing the ultrasound, looking around, and all of a sudden we see a sac, and we see it just perfectly right there. It was empty, but it was there. And me and my husband look at each other, and we're like, are you kidding me?
Oh my God.
So she's like, it's not ectopic. I'm like, oh, I can see that. It's right there.
Well, I was going to say, when you said you went in at 800, you can't see anything on an ultrasound until 1600. So I was curious if like HCG, so I was curious if like you had the 800, you waited a couple days, had the ultrasound, but that's still pretty early to see
I
anything.
thought so too. Okay, I lied. And maybe I was like near.
No, I think you told it right. You said you got a beta of 800 and then you went in a couple days later. So they probably
Yeah.
just assumed that it
Oh, yeah,
doubled.
they assumed it was going to be like doubled. And it
Right,
did.
which
It was
means-
like, it was more than double. Because I remember I came home and I was at like no, it wasn't 1400. It was over 2000. So it was
Yeah.
like still going up. So I was like, it is not ectopic. I was so mad.
Right.
So she was so sweet and like, yep, it's right there. And she was checking everything. She's like, there's good blood flow to your ovaries still. Like everything is still good. And I was like, okay, I really need to pee. And I felt something like drop. I was like, I need to go to the bathroom. So my husband like walks me to the bathroom. Also infertility really takes like the magic out of marriage. Sometimes you see each other like truly your worst, especially with something like this, like waddling with a diaper or having a miscarriage in a hospital. I'm like, this is great. This is marriage. This is love, really. And I remember I was like going pee, and all of a sudden I was just like, I looked down and there was a lot of tissue, I'll say. And I was like, Adam, look at this. And he was like, oh, do you think that's it? I'm like, that's more than, yeah, that's something. And I bring it back to the doctor, and I was such an ass. He's like, that's just a lot of tissue. Like, just completely disregarded like any feelings or anything of like, it was so frustrating. And again, the like sweet ultrasound tech, he left, and she was like, that's more than tissue. I'm like, I know. She was just very validating. It was sweet. And so they looked over the labs and everything. They're like, okay, so you are still pregnant, but your numbers are going down from what we can tell. So you are having a miscarriage. And I'm like, I know why.
It's a roller coaster. Yeah, a bit of hope, then no hope.
Oh, I'm like, I
probably why you were in so much pain. It was like actively happening.
Yeah, exactly. And so that was really frustrating. And then the next doctor came in. Thankfully, he like was near the end of his shift. And so she came in and she was so sweet. And she's like, I don't think we need to do a DNC tonight because it looks like everything is kind of progressively like progressing well, and it's not ectopic. So we don't need to like go in for emergency surgery. So we get ready to go and like leave the hospital. And I look at my husband. I'm like, we're going back to my sister's. Like, this is not how my Christmas night is ending. Like, this is so depressing. So we go back there, and my mom's like, why are you here? I'm like, I'm hungry. Like, I'm starving. I haven't eaten all day. I've been in pain. And I'm like, my husband's getting me food, and my brother-in-law is like helping him and stuff. And my dad's just like, you are tough as nails. And I'm like, yeah, I have no choice sometimes. And the next day, my husband had to go back to work. And I remember just kind of wandering the house, just crying, like just sobbing, like my first like miscarriage, I didn't know what it was really. So I was more just in pain, but this one, I had a lot of emotion to it because I saw numbers going up, and then I saw the sac and everything. And so it was like a very mournful day. It was really hard. And the next day I went in and did the DNC, and it went really well, and they were very kind about it. And they let me know that there wasn't a lot of like tissue left over. And I think they saw the sac too, because they had to do the ultrasound. They're like, oh yeah, it's a blighted ovum. And I'm like, oh yeah, I know. Like, I mean, like, yes, I've researched things, so I know these things. But yeah, then what did we do? Oh, then I came back a couple weeks later to my doctor's office because I'm like, well, let's get started. Like, I'm ready to do this again. It gave me, sorry. I don't know how it is for other women, but like, it sounds horrible. Before I did my last transfer, I remember just kind of like, not really praying, but just thinking like, even if it's a miscarriage, I will take it because that means it works. Like something will work. Mm-hmm. And then when it kind of happened, I was like, okay, so it means something can work, and that's good, and it's not ectopic, and something can attach. So it gives you like that little bit of hope. But I mean, it's still awful and hard. Mm-hmm. So we were ready to go pretty quickly. We're like, let's do this again. So I went in for a water ultrasound, and I had to do, or they were like, oh, there's some like little bits in there or something we need to clean out. You need to have a hysteroscopy. At this point, this was my third hysteroscopy. I had one right before my first transfer. And then, it was my third. And then a second one, I don't remember the timeline, but it was my third. And it was frustrating because I'm like, I'm just so tired of spending all this money on everything. And it was just, it just gets to that point where you're just like, yes, it's worth it. But right now it is so hard to just keep going and keep trying, driving to the appointments and all the blood draws and all of it. So I did a hysteroscopy a couple weeks ago and it went well. And they're like, actually, there wasn't a lot in there. There was just like, I think they said like a blood blister, blood clot or something. And I was like, okay. So then I talked to my doctor and she's like, we're going to do a full like panel, like rheumatological panel. We're going to check for all of these things. We got to figure out why this didn't, if we can see why it did, like this miscarried. And so I did the huge blood draw panel. It was like 20 vials. And I actually talked to my doctor just a few days ago on the 11th to go over all those. Wow. And she's like, okay, so you do have a blood clotting disorder. I'm like, oh, look at that.
You?
No, what was it?
Called protein S deficiency or something like that. She's like, it's very mild, but it's loosely connected to a miscarriage. And I think they have to say it like that because like they're protecting themselves. They can't say this is what caused it. But I'm like, what else could it have been? Right?
But like maybe you have an answer now.
Yes. And so of course I again like follow IVF people. So I know like if you have blood clotting issues, they put you on Lovenox. And she's like, so you're gonna go on Lovenox. I'm like, I know. I mean good, but I know.
You're like, okay, let's do it. I'm ready.
Right. I'm ready. Whatever. Give me more injections. And when we were talking, I was like, so because we didn't know the gender of the last embryo, and I was just like, what was it? Like, I had a feeling the whole time. I was like, I feel like it's a girl. And I remember telling my husband that. And this last transfer, I treated it very differently. I actually would like kind of talk to my stomach at night. I was like, okay, baby, like get in there, like get cozy. And it was very different for me because it's so easy to kind of detach yourself in a form of like protecting your heart to be like, I don't want to like get too attached and like talk to it and name it and do all these things. That's why I kind of didn't want to know the gender, which might sound horrible, but it's like, I don't want to.
I get it.
Invest myself yet, like it is so heartbreaking. And so then when I talked to my doctor, she's like, oh yeah, I can tell you here. And she was looking over the notes and everything. She goes, yeah, so it was a little girl. And I was just like, okay.
That's like, yeah, I know when I found out that was like the hardest.
It was really hard, but it was also kind of cool because I was like,
I knew.
Feeling like I knew it was a girl. And so, so now our next step is we have a transfer scheduled for March 11th. This is our fourth transfer. And we're doing like the lipid infusions again. We're going to obviously do the Lovenox and go into it with tentative hope.
Well, I'm hopeful for you. It's something new, and you found like you had a positive test. Amanda and I both, I did Lovenox for my 7th and 10th pregnancy, and those are working. 7th worked, the 10th is working, and I know Amanda, you're starting to look at some Lovenox too.
Yeah, I don't know. It's so wild. Like this is such a journey that you really don't think anything of until you're in it. Like so many people are like, okay, so what does that mean? So what does this do? So what is that? And then I have like a sister who has 5 kids, and in the midst of us trying, she got pregnant twice and was so sweet and let me know every time. She's like, okay, so we're trying. And then I swear it was like a week later, so we're pregnant.
Yeah, and that's still so hard. Yeah, and especially somebody like from your mindset, you're like, I will never do IVF. And here you are, like on your 3rd transfer, getting more and more answers and getting deeper and deeper into it.
Yes.